Hey everyone, these are the astrological highlights for the second half of August. So just thank you for being patient with me getting this out a little later than was intended. For those of you who don't follow me on social media and weren't aware, my dad was one of the missing people in Lahaina and lost everything in the fires, and luckily he's still alive. So I've just been doing a lot with that, and so it's kind of just delayed me getting this out. So without further ado, let's get into it, and let's talk about the 22nd. So the transits that we're going to talk about for the 22nd have been kind of starting the day before on the 21st. So when this video comes out, we'll probably already start to feel it. So we have Venus, which is going to be in square to Jupiter in Taurus. So we have that square that's happening right here. And we also have Mars, which is going to be in opposition to Neptune. Very different kind of energy as well. So I'd say that, this is a time where you will want to, as much as possible, stay present and with yourself in terms of what's happening, your integrity, as much as possible. And also kind of go easy on yourself. Maybe not going to be the most productive of days, even the day before on the 21st, but also the 22nd. So yeah, just maybe give yourself some grace, give yourself a little bit of understanding here. So this could feel like, the way that this comes together could feel like diminished motivation and like diminished drive. So there could very much be this attitude of fuck responsibility, let's party, because of this whole connection that is happening with the square off between Venus and Jupiter, and just how indulgent that can really become. So there might be the tendency to just go, I don't want to deal with it, especially when we've got like this very watery Neptunian energy and this very fiery Mars energy that is just in opposition to each other. So that can also kind of muddy things and just have it feel less focused. So you'll want to be mindful of overindulgence with, spending. So this could definitely involve like spending a lot too much and regretting it. You'll want to watch your overindulgence with eating, imbibing, escapism, things of that nature. So one of the ways that I think that we can actually work with this energy to kind of go with the flow and maybe kind of make it a little bit more pleasant for us. So I do like to give the warnings about days, but also just kind of talk about how we can make it work for us, right? So this might be if you have the kind of schedule that allows you the kind of flexibility and freedom to move things around if you work from home or work for yourself or things of that nature. Even if you don't, this could still be something that I think that you could work with, but you'll want to maybe consciously like take a measured conscious break, like conscious indulgence, so that you can maybe just say, you know what, Monday and Tuesday, especially Tuesday, I'm just gonna kind of let this be maybe not as productive. It'll be a sanity day. Or if let's say that you do work all day, then maybe in the evening saying like, it's going to be a sanity evening. This is when you can say, okay, I'm going to make this my cheat meal day so that I can enjoy some of the overindulgence kind of vibes, right? I'm going to make this a cheat day. I'm going to invite some friends over, watch a trilogy or watch a series, just like laugh, have good food, have good drink, and just kind of making sure that you're consciously choosing this so that you don't overdo it, creating parameters, right? I'm not saying make it a cheat day and eat 3 extra large pizzas, but I am saying, maybe you can say, okay, if this is the vibe, then why not try to go with it? Go with the fuck it, let's party kind of energy and the not wanting to deal with necessarily with responsibility and make it fun. So I think that you can work with this. It doesn't really feel the best if you're needing to like be focused and working throughout the day, but if you have the ability to move things around in your schedule, or just be understanding with yourself if you're finding that things are just not as clear and focused and driven as you would like them to be or need them to be, and you're running into those, just give yourself some understanding and just know that this is going to pass. But yes, that's how I think we can take advantage of the day, is by conscious indulgence. I really want to emphasize that. So, all right, let's move on to the 23rd. All right, so here we are on the 23rd. We've got a couple things happening. By the way, if you guys can hear that hammering in the background, I apologize. There's construction happening. So we have the sun, which is going to be ingressing from Leo into Virgo. So we have that here, sun ingressing into a new sign. So we're now in Virgo season. And we also have Mercury, which is going to be starting its retrograde on this day as well. So for almost the entirety of Virgo season, we will have Mercury retrograde during that time. So at a time of year where the vibe is already something that tends to be maybe more focused on details and practicality of what's up in our lives, maybe even a little bit more grounded, like we start to kind of get that feeling, around this time of year, we have the added energy of revision happening at the same time. So the normal clearing and organizing is magnified, and we can see what needs to be edited because Mercury in Virgo is really good with that. So we'll get a better sense of that, or even the things that needed to be edited out of whatever plans we have going on, anything that's Mercury related or things in our lives. So, we can look over the details a lot more closely because of this energy slowing things down and gives us a better opportunity. I know that it's annoying, but it gives us a better opportunity to really move forward with our plans that have been, like edited and reviewed in a much better way once we're especially on the other side of this. So, the thing is that we're already in a space of reevaluation because of this Venus retrograde and where that's been and what that's been bringing up. But Mercury is prompting us to be thoughtful about different types of topics, like our communication or contracts and projects, our travel plans, etc. Right? Like all of these kinds of Mercury type of topics. So again, I know that it can be kind of annoying, especially if you are really trying to build momentum for something and you've been really trying to get things to move forward. But, we have a lot of planets retrograde right now. We're also going to talk about another planet going retrograde towards the end of this month. So the energy is kind of slowing down at this time anyways. So I would say, I like to give people the heads up for things when we have some really great astrology, when we have some things to be mindful of. And I would say, how can we take advantage of and really work with the energy? Well, I think if we can kind of like flip it and see that this is an opportunity for us to catch the details and revise things and edit things that we might otherwise not have caught if we had been going at full speed in our lives, right? So I know that Mercury retrograde is not everyone's favorite, and for some people it's really not going to be the biggest deal. It always depends on like where Mercury is in your natal chart and how that's occurring. But this is a lot of energy that we're talking about happening in Virgo. So I think that this is going to be more detail oriented, and it's going to be even that much more important for us too, especially if you're signing contracts and you can't help it. It's got to happen during this period of time. I would say this is going to be even more important that you go over your contract with like a fine-tooth comb, with like a magnifying glass. Make sure that you read everything, that you've done it more than once, that you really understand it. Definitely double checking details and things of that nature. So depending on where this is, what house Virgo occupies in your chart, that'll give you a little bit more information. So I hope that that's helpful. All right, so on the 27th, we have a couple things happening. We've got the sun, which is going to be in opposition to Saturn. So we're going to have that going on. We also have Mars, which will be ingressing into a new sign. It'll be moving into Libra. So Mars will be moving into Libra. Just kind of touching back on what I was just talking about with using the energy constructively, even though Mercury is going to be retrograde, Mars being in Virgo has this ability to really kind of cut and sever and edit things out and be able to look at the details and move things through in that way. And even though we're going to have Mercury retrograde, I would say this would be one of those times where I'd say it would be good to take advantage of any kind of editing stuff that you need to do. If you're looking at what needs to go in a project, for instance, or like you're writing a book and like what needs to be edited out and, things like that, like this might be a good time to do some of that editing type work between the 23rd and the 27th before it moves into Libra, right? So not like it's our only chance to do that, but I'm just saying, why not, if you can take advantage of that energy. So So with this energy though, with the sun that is going to be opposing Saturn, like as if we really needed a reality check, we get one. So we may be very acutely aware of the limitations in life and feel restricted maybe from expanding to the degree that we would like to right now. So, with Mercury being in retrograde in Virgo, I think it'll add to that feeling of being slowed and stopped in a way, because it's almost like the reality check that Saturn gives is kind of, it almost halts and slows things down in a way that is maybe a little above annoying for me, at least in the way that I feel this kind of stuff. So, so you might experience some frustration with this, and but with this you can really take note of where the limitations are, right? And consider that, as annoying as that is, that it's allowing you to look long and hard at what needs reworking, or that you'll be slowed down enough to consider that, like what direction do you even really want to go in. So yeah, just like I think if you've been working on a project or something like that, as an example, this might be a point where you really kind of like hit up against some kind of limitation or boundary or restriction or a speed bump that has you kind of go, oh, okay, like I didn't realize that's a reality check. I didn't know that was there. So we've got to like replan, or we've got to edit some things out, that kind of a thing. So yeah, might be kind of frustrating. So with Mars also moving into Libra, that could add to any kind of indecisiveness or cloudiness that you might be like, it might have been feeling already. So like just not feeling like you're able to really drive at things with the same kind of power or clarity or motivation that you might have had other times. So it's just a little bit harder for Mars to be, maybe not just a little bit, it's actually harder for Mars just to be in the opposite of its sign, right? It's like its home is, or one of its homes is Aries. And so for it to be completely in a different house than, or, it won't be in the 10th and the 4th for everyone, but just like to be in the opposite house of where it's normally feels at home, it just means that it's not really able to do what it does best. So the gifts that come with Mars are not as easily expressed. It's not as easily able to do what it likes to do in the way it likes to do it. So, just considering all of this, I would say, again, like it is annoying, but if you can really just reframe it as whatever kinds of limitations, speed bumps, or slowing down that is occurring at this time, again, because of all the other astrology as well, this is just like take note of it, write it down in your notebook. Okay, like we're hitting this limitation and this limitation. It's like, all right, I've got a list of things that need to be addressed, things that need to be reviewed for revision and possibly edited or edited out. That's a way that you can use this constructively and maybe channel some of that frustration into something that's worthwhile. All right, so I mentioned we were going to have another planet going retrograde, and we do. So this is going to be Uranus. We're going to have Uranus going retrograde in Taurus, and that'll be for approximately 5 months until January 26th of this coming year. So, and just to say, Uranus, the outer planets have longer periods of time, so they're retrograde every year for months at a time, different times, different amount of months is what I mean to say. So yeah, this happens approximately 5 months. It's something that, we probably notice a slight difference of something that's happening in the background, but it's not really super conscious to us because we're not looking for this or noticing it necessarily. Often the outer planets are affecting us on a more collective level. They're not like the personal planets like Mercury or Venus or, Mars or the moon or, you know what I mean? So it's not like that. And so it may be something that you're only aware of when you're made aware of it. So Uranus, let's talk about Uranus, the liberator, the rebel, the champion of misfits, right? Chaos and brilliance, right? This when it's going retrograde, as I said, the outer planets tend to be something that affects us more collectively, like on the world stage, we can see it outwardly. However, when it goes retrograde, we might feel this influence a little bit more internal. So less about evoking this like radical external change and more about encouraging us to be doing the radical change like internally. So we might feel the pull to explore our sense of independence or our own uniqueness, or to change up the stagnant areas in our life in the part of the chart that occupies Taurus. So this is why I think it's important to have your chart, to be able to look at your chart and see which house, like which of the houses it's actually affecting. So it's going to be in a different house for you than, unless you happen to have it in your third house, right? But it's going to be in a different house. Each house represents a different place in life, a different area of life, different topics about our life. And so it gives us a lot more information about where we can look for this. It definitely personalizes the astrology a hell of a lot more, right? So I definitely recommend it. So which area of life are you being asked to live on your own terms, right? To own your autonomy in this area. So, also, like, it has us looking back, right? Any retrograde is about us reviewing things. Like, it brings things up for review. And so we could say, also we could ask, like, what lessons or shakeups have happened in this area of your chart, in this area of your life, where whichever house it occupies, for the last, I would say, 7-ish months, right? It's about that amount of time. So you'll be asked to look back over what you've experienced in relation to what's been shaken up, that's been stagnant, what things have, like, you felt restlessness around. Have you owned yourself, your uniqueness, or felt like the strong desire to do so? Like, where has this liberating kind of energy been felt or been happening? Sudden things that have kind of come out of nowhere that are related to Uranus, and also to the topics of Taurus as well, right? And so, and just so like, where you want to check also, if you happen to be someone who does have your chart, you'll want to look at the degrees between 23 and 15. Not because in this particular transit chart, Jupiter is at 15, although I find that interesting. But you'll want to look at if you have any planets in this area right here, right between 23 and 15, because that's where Uranus was previous, right? Before, like, that last point, it's going to retrograde to the 15-degree mark. So it's going to go back to here to the 15-degree mark, and then when it starts to go forward, we'll have it come back this direction again. You can't really see that with my purple there. Let me see if I just choose a different one. Okay, so it'll retrograde to about that 15-degree mark, so it'll go this way, and then when we have it go direct finally in a few months, in January, right, it'll come forward to about the same point. So if you have any planets that are occupying that area, you'll want to pay attention to that. You're probably going to feel this more prominently, right? So whichever planets are there, it brings in those flavors and maybe any kinds of shakeups or lessons that are related to those planets. So, and that's maybe for those of you who are just kind of, a little bit further along in your knowledge around your personal astrology. And if you don't know that, no big deal. Like, you don't need to know that to understand this information. I just more so say that because I find it really interesting. And if you have that information, just want to point that out because I think it's important. So let's move on to our last day that we're going to be looking at, which is the 30th. All right, so we end out the month with our last slide here on the 30th, so day before the last day of the month, and we have a full moon that is happening in Pisces. And if you have not seen how to recognize that in a chart, that's when the sun and moon are in opposition. That's when we've got a full moon. So we have the full moon, and it's the second full moon of the month, which doesn't happen often, so they call it a blue moon. And so this is going to be in Pisces. This full moon in Pisces doesn't really feel so dreamy or so maybe easy to drop into fantasyland or escapism. It kind of has this sobering quality to it. The moon is hanging out in really close proximity to Saturn. So it's going to be right there next to Saturn. And also, it's going to be in Saturn's decan. So if you don't know what that means, no worries. Just know that every like 10 degrees of a sign, for instance, is ruled by a decan. So it just kind of, we can see that there's this like double Saturn type of energy that's happening here. It's even more so that, right? So we have that going on. And again, with the sun being in opposition over here in a earthy sign that has to do with a lot of details and is very detail focused, this might also contribute it to feeling somewhat sobering. And so we might really be feeling the contrast of that dreamy, like typically very dreamy Piscean type of energy with cold, hard reality and facts, right? So we be coming up against that. And, there's some adulting about our feelings that we're likely going to feel we need to do. We'll be called to stick with it, to stay with it, to deal with the shit instead of running away. It won't feel so easy to like squirm out of this, to wiggle out of it, slip away and be slippery into like some other realm. So more reality checks, we could say, but like an emotional reality check or like a fantasy reality check that comes in. I'm not necessarily saying that this is going to feel hard unless that idea feels really difficult to you, if that's something that you typically feel like you struggle with. Again, we can always look to our chart to see like what house is it occupying, right? So we want to look at what house is Pisces occupying. It gives us a little bit of a better idea of where we might feel this happening more, just to give you kind of like an idea of how you can personalize this. But yeah, this is definitely like, let's say that it has to do with, maybe relationships, or something like that, or communication relationship. You might need to deal with some hard facts, some hard reality stuff, and that it might feel challenging. And this is like going to be a place where you can't just like escape and run away from it. You got to deal with it, right? So that's just one example, and that could happen in any area of your life, right? This could be with work. This could be with, home life. It could be with a lot of different things. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to feel like, the cold hard facts are just going to feel so abrasive. I'm just saying that for some people it could feel more sensitive and abrasive in that way, unless you're someone who typically is like, oh no, I'm good with that energy, I can handle that, right? And again, this also depends on what's happening in your own natal chart with this. So yeah, so that's what we've got going on with this moon. Again, full moons are the pinnacle of the waxing energy, has reached its culmination point and its climax. And then it's like almost like that full energy, that pregnant energy of the moon just bursts. And then we have that release, right? So it is a releasing point, because right after that we move into that release and waning phase. So, this might be helping you to understand more clearly, like with reality, like just being there, that what needs to be addressed or what needs to be released. Or this could feel like a pressure building point where you're just like, I'm now realizing I need a break, I need a release, I need to find ways to schedule this time for myself or to have a break, for my sanity, whatever it is. It could show up a bunch of different ways. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you again for your patience with all of this. Definitely check out the monthly videos. I will also have the new videos that will be coming out shortly for September as well. And I will have, for this full moon, for this blue moon, I will also have the back to being back with the bi-weekly readings. I wasn't able to get those out again because of my dad and the Lahaina fires and whatnot. So by the way, if you feel so inclined to share his GoFundMe, we're trying to get him solid, or to contribute yourself, please feel free to check that out. I'll have that in the link down below. So thank you again for your time, and thanks for being here and for your patience. And I will see you guys in the next video. All right, take care.